Next question to Mr. Soto. We've heard about the magnet school being raised as an issue. New London seems to be getting very close to that goal. Yet you'll be, if you are elected, you'll be going to a legislature. Everyone's going to be fighting for every dollar. What do you see as the potential pitfalls for completing the magnet school effort, and what would be your approach to make sure that you can overcome those potential pitfalls? Yeah.
So my approach is going to be working hand in hand with the superintendent. You know, we have a great working relationship. We've been working well together for, you know, since he's been back, and it's ensuring that whatever we need to do, like legislation with teeth, that's going to make sure that our future magnet schools have a 3-year grace period in order to meet their racial balance, in order to meet the racial balance, that we have teeth and legislation that gives us that waiver. So we don't have to go back every year to get the waiver.
If you could talk about that question, making sure that this effort is completed with our magnet schools. Representative Hewett.
Yes, that makes sense, to keep the waiver in place. I'm sick that we had to go and introduce legislation, but we tried everything in our power to do it without legislation. We met with the State Board of Education. We had all the major players in the room, the superintendent, the mayor, myself, and she sat and told us that you can't do it without legislation. So that's what we did. We went and got a bill passed, and it got passed, and that gave the superintendent exactly what he needed. This magnet school is going to, we're not done yet. It's still a lot more to do. And you're not just going to go up there. I would love to see, I don't know if you know the chair of Education Committee, the 2 chairs, Schlossberg, you know them, you've been around there long enough. There's some tough cookies. I remember when we got the magnet school plan passed in the first place, the first time. We sat on the dais with the Speaker of the House, with the Chair of Education, and went toe-to-toe for half an hour with 20 minutes to go in session. This bill was not even passed as a bill. It was passed as an implementer in the back of the education budget. Because if it would have went to the floor of the House, the other 168 towns would have wanted the same thing that New London got. And that's why we would have still been debating that bill right now.
Mr. Soto, if you could, though, if the idea that this project is so critical, if you could address Democratic voters that might be concerned about sending a freshman legislator up there when, you know, we want to make sure the job gets completed. If you could address the concerns they might have of you know, changing horses midstream in the midst of this magnet school effort, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, the reality is that, again, that waiver that we have for next year is just for 1 year, right? When we didn't get the waiver last year, when the commissioner said no, that it had to be legislation, that is based on relationships. That kind of tells you kind of that perception of New London in Hartford right now.
She didn't ask us last year. She asked us this year. That's when it got passed this year. It didn't take much to do it because of those relationships.
We're approaching the, before we move to our final statements, wanted to remind voters here that the primary is August 9th, also those watching on theday.com. And it's only open to registered Democrats. There is still time to register and participate in that primary. And now we are going to move to final comments. Each of our candidates gets 1 minute. By a coin toss, the order was determined, and we start with Mr. Soto.